What? Start AI companion? I think I think what is AI companion?
I don't know. I think that's the new recording device right now. AI
I
is
think we're
perfect.
recording. Or does it show that we're recording?
Yes, it does on my end.
Wow. Well, welcome to Jonesing for Football. As some notification has come up on my screen, Start AI Companion. Oh, I know what happened. My Zoom got updated, and I'm not going to start. Should I start AI Companion?
No, let's not. Let's hear. Start over.
Yeah, we are going to start over, but
All right.
okay. All right. And so now we're going to start. Okay.
Let's do it.
And so for you folks streaming at CBS Texas, we are starting now in three, two, and for all I care, you can just use it from the start. I think it's kind of funny.
Yeah,
Here
do
we
it.
go in three, two, and a one. Well, how in the world could it be? Week number 8 already of this National Football League season. We are approaching the halfway point of the season, and this is Jonesing for Football. Bill Jones, along with young Cody Winstead. I'm in Dallas. Young Cody is in the Jonesing for Football studios in Philadelphia, a city that was reeling as recently as last week. But then along came the Minnesota Vikings to save the day for the Eagles. They are back on track with an opportunity to get revenge this weekend against the New York Football Giants. And away we go with another edition of Jonesing for Football. Hello, young Cody. How are you?
Hello, Bill Jones. Great to be with you as always. Yeah, I've realized we're at the point of the season where the fall is here. It's getting cold. I was in Kansas City last week and I had short sleeves. It was way too chilly for like a 7 a.m. game. It was in the 40s. It's going to be a high of 58 in Philly on Sunday. So, yeah, we've reached like the second part of the season. The weather is going to start impacting games.
Yep. Yep. Last weekend of games in the month of October and the first Sunday in November next week. And the Cowboys traveling to Denver to take on the Broncos as they had their best complimentary football game of the season last week against the Washington Commanders, a 44-22 win over an injury depleted Commanders team that did not have Scary Terry or Debo for the entire game and didn't have Jaden Daniels for most of the second half of the game. But a win is a win, and the Cowboys need to somehow come up with two straight wins against Bo Nix and the Broncos.
Bills guy Bo Nix. By the way, I just checked the weather because like late October is possibly snow weather, a snow possibility in Denver. 72 degrees as the high in Denver on Sunday. That's going to be beautiful
And
for
we
the
should,
Cowboys.
yeah, we should also point out that the game is a 3:25 kickoff Dallas time, and you can see it with Jim Nantz and Tony Romo on the call on CBS Texas. And by the way, for those of you not aware, yes, you can catch Jonesing for Football streaming on CBS Texas each and every week. I know that's where Babe Loffenberg likes to watch the show, even as he listens to it, wherever he finds his podcast on his elliptical in Dallas.
He listens to the podcast on the elliptical, and then Sunday morning on his way to the game, he streams it on CBS Texas. You got to watch it and listen to it. We need all the downloads and listens we can get to. All right, let's talk about the fun weekend ahead, Bill Jones. Lots of really intriguing and important games. We'll break down the best of the bunch, including the suddenly surging Dallas Cowboys. Can I call them surging, Bill Jones? One win in a row, maybe?
Yes, they got one win in a row. Yes,
All right, we'll do
yes.
that. Bill mentioned in Denver. We'll do our must watch games of the week. And then our highest rated segment of the podcast. That, of course, is Pressures On. And we always wrap it up right with our fantasy favorites for week 8. So let's lead it off, though, with Dallas in Denver, what used to be known as Mile High Stadium. Now it's like something at Mile High.
It's Empower Field at Mile High.
Thank you, Bill Jones. 3:25 kickoff. Bill mentioned it. Going to be huge ratings, probably the second highest rated thing on CBS Texas over the weekend, behind jonesing for football, of course. But I want to know from you, Mr. Jones, what sticks out in this Cowboys Broncos matchup.
Okay, and Cowboys Broncos, by the way, this is one of 8 interconference matchups this weekend. First, young Cody, let me give you a little lesson in the difference between interconference and intra-conference or intra-division. There are 8 interconference games. Now, inter, spelled I-N-T-E-R, that is when you have one conference pitted against the other conference. And so Dallas being an NFC team against an AFC team. 8 of those type matchups this week on the 13-game slate. There are only 3 intra-division games, including your Giants-Eagles game. And all 3 intra-division games, by the way, pit first-place teams against last-place teams in those divisions. So not exactly a marquee matchup in the bunch. And then there are 2 intra-conference AFC games. So there, that fills you in on the slate, and it gives you sort of an English lesson as we go along here. You like
I wrote down all those grammatical definitions and descriptions from you. Thank you.
All right, so now we've got a Dallas team at 3-3-1 on the season, playing at a Denver team that comes in at 5-2. And by the way, young Cody, do you know which team is in first place in the AFC West?
Of course I do. The Denver
The
Broncos.
Denver Broncos. That's exactly right. They may not be the best team in the AFC West. I think we're in agreement that the Kansas City Chiefs are the best team there, but Kansas City at 4-3, Denver at 5-2. And what a win last week for the Broncos, coming from behind against the Giants with a 33-point fourth quarter to do it. It was simply amazing to go back and watch that game. So here we go. Brian Schottenheimer versus Sean Payton. Vance Joseph, the defensive coordinator for the Broncos, and what they're doing with 34 sacks on the season to lead the NFL after a season in which they led the NFL with 63 sacks. Matt Eberflus trying to figure out how to get this subpar Dallas defense up to snuff, playing a lot of man last week. And it appears Trayvon Diggs not playing for the second straight week for Dallas, as he is still in concussion protocol, has not practiced this week. As of Friday morning, Brian Schottenheimer said it doesn't look like he's going to play, so I'm ruling him out. And but it's a big opportunity for the Cowboys and for the Broncos for that matter, because if you look at the Cowboys' schedule, if they can get above 500 for the first time this year at 4-3-1, and then next week they got a Monday night game against Arizona, a bye week, and then a Monday night game at Vegas, they have a chance. If they can steal a win in Denver, to be 6-3-1 headed into Thanksgiving week, which is that 3-game stretch. I'm turning the 6-game stretch that we've talked about all year now into a 3-game stretch, 3 games in 12 days where they play Philadelphia, Kansas City, and Detroit. They need to get to 6-3-1 leading into that stretch.
Hey, if that happens, they're in pretty good shape. The Broncos is just going to be a tough win. Obviously, it's never easy to win in Denver, even more with this kind of team and this defense. And Broncos top 5 scoring defense second straight year. And they were number 3 last year, number 4 this year. Obviously, I think that's what everyone's really excited to see is Denver defense going against Dak, who's lighting it up right now. I have a follow-up question for you, Bill Jones. Last Sunday, I was in KC, as I mentioned. I watched Patrick Mahomes slice up the Raiders. Then I went back to my hotel and watched Dak dice up the Commanders, both doing whatever they wanted on the field. And I was thinking, dang, these guys looking awfully similar, the way Mahomes was throwing it around, the way Dak was throwing it around. So my question for you is, Dak's had a long and storied career there with the Cowboys. Is this the best version of Dak Prescott we've seen playing quarterback?
It is for 7 games. And keep in mind that 2 years ago, which would be well, I think you go back to his rookie year and you can make a case that that was a pretty good version of it and what Jason Garrett and Scott Linehan did with a rookie fourth-round draft pick who got thrown in when Romo got hurt late in the preseason. They go 13-3, win the division. That was a pretty good case for Dak Prescott. That was his, but I mean, if you just go back and watch, just look at Dak's face. Look,
Yeah,
any of our faces 10 years ago, 9 years ago, and you can see the
true.
difference. But 2 years ago, second in the MVP race, and the common thread there on this coaching staff is that that was the first year that Brian Schottenheimer was the offensive coordinator. Wasn't calling plays, but as we've gotten to know Schottenheimer now in the last 9 months ever since he became the head coach and what his personality is like, you can see the connection between Schottenheimer and Dak and why now looking back, how big it was and what a good decision I think it was for the Cowboys to promote Brian Schottenheimer to head coach. Uh, and the main reason they did it at the time was because of that relationship with Dak, and because everything else was an unknown since he hadn't been a head coach before. And but I think that there's a correlation there. And then I think you throw out last year from the simple case that obviously Dak got hurt, but even prior to that, CD Lamb was in a contract dispute. He didn't have him. I mean, let's face it, we've seen what George Pickens has added to this offense this year, having that second threat at the receiver position, what a healthy Jake Ferguson has meant to this offense this year, and what a run game has meant. That everything is trending in the right direction for Dallas and for Dak Prescott. And to answer your question, it is the best version, but I think the explanation for it goes even back 2 years ago when Schottenheimer got in that quarterback room as the offensive coordinator.
So he's had a lot of good years as the Cowboys quarterback, but there have been 3 truly great years. You mentioned 2016 as a rookie, 23 touchdowns, 4 picks. He won Offensive Rookie of the Year. 2021 was his 60th year, 37 touchdowns, 10 picks, a 104 rating, second in Comeback Player of the Year. And then you, of course, mentioned last 2023, where he finished second in the MVP voting. 36 touchdowns, 9 picks, a 106 rating. This is actually, he's on pace for a career high in passer rating. He's 107.5 right now, 16 touchdowns, 3 picks. So I'm with you. He just everything seems very comfortable for him. There have been times in Dak's career where things looked hard, whether it was the offensive line struggling to protect him or he didn't have a run game. It just seemed like things were hard. Now it's like the opposite. It's like kind of whatever he wants to do, wherever he wants to throw it. And you mentioned all the pieces. He's got CD and Pickens, and the O-line looks better, even though they've had backups for a lot of these games. The run game's working. He is the reason that everything is kind of coming together. And I give Dak a lot of credit.
Yeah, I think his passer rating a week ago was 104.5 or something like that, and now you said it's 107.8. Cody, do you listen to your radio much when you're driving around, FM radio at all anymore, or do you just listen to podcast or music on your app or
Yeah, so the number
satellite
one thing I
radio?
listen to is Jonesing for Football. It's a great podcast. I listen to that, number one. But number two, here in Philadelphia, we have 94 WIP. It's a pretty good sports radio station here.
So FM radio is still a thing.
Oh, for
Okay.
sure. Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't dating myself with all people listening to podcasts and they've got their own playlist on Spotify or Apple or whatever. Okay. So you're familiar with the FM radio dial. I think it goes to about 107.1. When your passer rating is beyond 107, then you're doing pretty good as a quarterback in this league. And he's at 107.8. I'm not sure if the FM dial goes that far at 107.8, but that is where Dak is.
I think so. He playing that well. The one thing I looked this up as well. So are we getting close to Dak being an MVP candidate right now? Tied for sixth in odds according to ESPN Bet, which I fully support all ESPN products, so I support ESPN Bet.
This is what I love because we get the national perspective here. Young Cody, here in Dallas, they've been talking about Dak Prescott being an MVP frontrunner since about week 3 of this season. Even with it, when the Cowboys have a sub 500 record. Oh, Dak, well, they were chanting MVP in New York at the Meadowlands at the end of the Jets game. After they beat the Jets, the winless Jets, MVP, MVP.
Yeah, but there's a difference between playing like an MVP and being a realistic MVP candidate. Obviously, the success of the team has a lot to do with this, right? We saw last year Joe Burrow had an incredible year, and he was, I think, finished third in MVP because his team didn't make the playoffs. The Cowboys, I think, are in a similar position where if they make the playoffs, Dak actually has a legitimate chance. Not saying he'd even be the favorite, but it's always tough when you're going against like guys like Mahomes. Like the Chiefs are going to win 12, 13, 14 games. Josh Allen, Drake May is actually third. I'll get to more of him. Baker Mayfield fourth, Matt Stafford fifth, and then you got Dak right there tied for sixth. Bill Jones.
If the Chiefs get to 14 wins, they're going to be winning out.
No, yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah. Well, I'm just saying that's what he normally wins, and that's what you have to win. I actually heard on a show, Joe Fortenbaum, he said, I think the most recent MVPs have all been either number 1 or number 2 seeds in each conference.
Which is why I've thought it's been just ridiculous even mentioning for fans here in media here talking about Dak as an MVP. Can we get above 500 first?
Right. And that's kind of what I'm getting
And
at.
how about Thanksgiving Day to that point? If the Cowboys and this Denver game is a big stepping stone to Thanksgiving Day. If Dak and the Cowboys can win at Denver, and then as I mentioned, the next 2 games, and then you got Philly, and then you got maybe the front runners for the MVP in the National Football League squaring off on Thanksgiving Day on CBS.
Yeah.
Hey,
go ahead. But I like where your head's at, talking about 6-3-1. But they also have to win the games against the Cardinals and the Raiders because we thought that they could kind of just coast against the Panthers, and they got beat by the Panthers. So, like, I don't think this Cowboys team is good enough now where we can be like, well, Cardinals are a W, Raiders are a W. Even though I watched the Raiders last weekend and they had 3 first downs in an entire game. So maybe the Cowboys could coast against them. But anyway, my point
especially if Max Crosby's playing for the Cowboys, by the way.
I'm not even going to go there. I don't think we need to go there.
All right, I got one other interesting little matchup, and I think maybe I've kind of, in a roundabout way, done this every week here on Jonesing for Football. It's kind of my matchup of the week, and from a Cowboys perspective, last week's matchup of the week was Brian Schottenheimer against Dan Quinn, 2 good friends going at each other. Okay. All right, here's my matchup of the week this week, and tell me if you like this. Jake Ferguson, okay, he is the first tight end in National Football League history to have 50 or more receptions, 6 touchdowns in his first 7 games of a season.
Wow.
Okay? Yes. All right, how about this matchup? Do you know who obviously Vance Joseph is the defensive coordinator. The defensive pass game coordinator and assistant head coach for the Denver Broncos is Jim Leonard, a Wisconsin legend, Jim Leonard, who played for Jake Ferguson's grandfather, Barry Alvarez, at the University of Wisconsin from 2001 to 2004. Jim Leonard from tiny Tony, Wisconsin, population 105, where he was an all sports star.
Yep.
Young Cody, I know you can knock down three-pointers left and right. Jim
Sure.
Leonard, as a 5'8", 165-pounder in high school, he knocked down 10 threes in one half in high school.
Wow.
All-state basketball player to go along with his baseball and football prowess. But then Jim Leonard goes to the NFL after his career at Wisconsin, undrafted, a 5'8" starting safety in the NFL, 3 of those years as a starter, playing for Rex Ryan with the New York Jets, where Brian Schottenheimer was the offensive coordinator. But anyway, I
Oh,
brought this up to Schottenheimer on his coach's show this week. That's the most intriguing matchup of the week for me is Jim Leonard, who played for Barry Alvarez, trying to contain through 7 games the greatest tight end in NFL history, Jake Ferguson, who I just have this mental vision of Jake Ferguson over 20 years ago when he was a toddler, basically, on the practice field, along with his older brother Joe, who also played at Wisconsin at Granddaddy's practice. And Jim Leonard was probably their favorite player. They might have been,
yeah.
even at that age, they've been taller than Jim Leonard. I'm not sure. Uh, and so
Possibly.
here it is. And then, by the way, Leonard also coached at Wisconsin when Jake Ferguson was at Wisconsin. So he's a legend in Madison. Ferguson grew up in Madison, and so I just love that matchup here as you get into the weeds of Dallas versus Denver this week.
As an Ohio State football fan, as I am, I'm very familiar with Jim Leonard and his history at Wisconsin. In fact, I believe he was took over as like head coach or interim head coach of the Badgers a few years ago. And I was thinking, of course, like you could tell he was the type of player, even when he was playing, that he will probably end up being a head coach of Wisconsin one day. And obviously now he's moved on to be a coach in the NFL level.
And one of the things Schottenheimer talked about is he's so impressed with Sean Payton's coaching staff, the coaching staff he's put together, starting with Vance Joseph, the defensive coordinator. But here, okay, Leonard is a head coach in waiting. Whether he probably get the Wisconsin job pretty soon,
Yeah,
uh,
true.
but and now he's got NFL experience. I mean, he is the type that would be a head coach in the NFL if he puts in the time in this league. Here's another guy, their quarterbacks coach, Davis Webb. He is a rising star in the coaching profession. I believe he's about around he's early 30s right now. And of course, he's a guy from Prosper, Texas, right here in Dallas Fort Worth. Went to Texas Tech. He was the third quarterback at Tech when Mahomes and Mayfield were there. He winds up transferring to Cal and then became a third-round draft pick. Brian Dable loves him, obviously, because he had him in Buffalo and then with the Giants. But Sean Payton was able to get him. And the next offensive coordinator job that opens in the league, Davis Webb is going to be a prime candidate for it. And with what he's done with Bo Nix here, and he is a eventual head coach in the NFL. Mark my words on that.
There you go. Davis Webb, 30 years old. You called it, Bill
Yeah.
Jones. Let's talk about our must-watch games of the week. We're going to expand to the whole season. Again, I've heard some people say it's not a great weekend. I think it's actually a really intriguing weekend. Give us your must-watch game of the week.
Well, the must-watch game of the week would have to be it's kind of strange how a lot of times these must-watch games of the week happen to be these Sunday night games.
Yeah, those
Strange how
N
that works out.
those NBC executives pretty smart a lot of times.
So the must-watch game of the week is the Green Bay Packers at the Pittsburgh Steelers Sunday Night Football. Green Bay, by the way, with the best record in the NFC thanks to their tie against the Cowboys.
Yeah.
They are 4-1-1 coming in. And I don't know if you were a math major in college, young Cody, at The Ohio State University or not, but the winning percentage on 4-1-1. Do you know what that would be?
I'm looking at it now. So yes, I do.
750.
750. Yeah.
Yes. 750 winning percentage. That is the best in the NFC in this. I'm making sure I'm saying this right. Inter-conference matchup against Pittsburgh, and the Steelers at 4-2 on the season. They are leading the worst division in football, the AFC North. It's definitely in contention along with the AFC South.
Only to this point in the season because of the quarterback injuries.
Okay, all right.
It'll be better going forward.
Yeah, okay, all right. So I wonder what would be an intriguing matchup here in between the Packers and the Steelers. Huh.
Hmm.
Aaron
Hmm.
Rodgers at quarterback for the Steelers against the Packers. And Micah coming off a 3-sack game at Arizona. He's starting to get his legs, it looks like. It looks like his back is getting a lot better now.
Yeah.
And he's now up to 5.5 sacks on the season. Aaron Rodgers going to get that ball out quickly. How many tight ends do you think they'll play in this game, the Steelers?
Four or
Or
five.
all the time.
Yep.
They're going not with the 12 personnel, they're going with their 14 personnel.
Yeah.
And Darnell Washington, man, this guy's coming on strong, right?
That's
He
true.
scored a touchdown.
He is a part of the
Targets now.
offense finally, Bill Jones, which
Right.
Aaron's smart. I mean, what I like about what the Steelers have done is they have DK Metcalf at wide receiver. The rest of the wide receivers are kind of just guys. They're all kind of good in one area, not really all that well rounded. But what they've done is supplemented it with great play at tight end with a bunch of different guys who are different, right? Darnell Washington, huge, big in the red zone, can block. You got Jonnu Smith, who's more of that hybrid wide receiver tight end guy. And then Fryermuth, who kind of does both. You've got Cam Hayward's brother, who's kind of a fullback tight end mix. So you can really do a ton of different things with the tight ends.
Yep. And so it is an intriguing matchup, and the importance of it, especially, I mean, with Lamar Jackson's injury, Baltimore's fallen to 1-5, but Pittsburgh needs to continue to rack up victories here and not look in their rearview mirror because there could be a team chasing them soon in the AFC North. And Green Bay, for their part in the NFC North, yes, they have the best record in the NFC, but the Lions appear to be getting it together big time at 5-2. They've got a bye week this week. I think Chicago at 4-2, playing at Baltimore, by the way, this week. And so that's going to be a very interesting race. I think the Vikings, and I said it watching on Thursday night, just that things are not going well there in Minnesota. And so I think we've got our last place team in the NFC North, unless they make a quarterback move.
I don't know what's going on there. They seem resistant to make that quarterback move. I wonder, they seem a little hesitant to put JJ McCarthy back in. Like he's the
I was
emergency
talking
guy.
about a quarterback move at the trade deadline.
Oh, I have no idea what you mean there.
Well, anyway, I don't think Carson Wentz is the answer there if they want to stay in this race.
Correct. We would all
Yes.
agree on that. By the way, the Steelers are, you mentioned, super interesting in that I just have a feeling that loss to the Bengals is going to come back to bite them. Listen to this schedule. You got Packers, you mentioned. Next week, they host the Colts. They're on fire. Then they go to the Chargers. Then the Bengals. They just lost to them. At Chicago versus Buffalo. At Baltimore, one would think with Lamar. So you're looking at 6 or 7 games there that the Steelers are going to be coin flip games at best. So they need as many wins as possible, even to get in the playoffs, let alone win this division, which they're currently leading.
What you're saying is 8 and 9 might win the AFC North. So there's hope for the Ravens.
That's what I am getting at. Baltimore not done yet if Lamar plays. All right. Well, nice job, Bill Jones, because you just set it on the tee for me. I'll knock it out of the park with my must-watch game of the week. It's Bears at Ravens, and I really love the dynamic we have at play here. 4-2 Chicago, an up-and-coming team, a fresh culture, trying to solidify themselves as a contender. Meanwhile, 1-5 Baltimore, tried and true, proven, tested, trying to save their season. I'll begin with the Bears, winners of 4 straight. All the talk about the Bears in the offseason, and I mean all the talk, was about Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams and that offense. Not one word was said about their defense. But we've got to show some love to Dennis Allen's unit. 16 takeaways, including 3 or more in each of the last 4 games. Something else that defense is doing well, getting off the field, top 3 in third down defense. Tremaine Edmonds still a tackling machine. He's top 10 in tackles in the league. Montez Sweat causing havoc behind the line of scrimmage, and Kevin Byard, the veteran Kevin Byard, leads the NFL, tied for the league lead in interceptions. One thing I'm worried about this week going against the Ravens, Derrick Henry, Bears, second worst in yards per carry allowed. So King Henry might have a week. Meanwhile, I was in Baltimore this week at Ravens practice, and the only thing anyone was talking about is obvious: Lamar Jackson. Will he play? Won't he play? When practice started on Wednesday, he wasn't out there, and we were like, uh-oh, this is a bad sign. Then 18 minutes into practice, he comes running out from the facility there, still recovering from a hamstring injury that he suffered back in week 4. Limited in practice on Wednesday, limited on Thursday, so we'll have to follow his status. I mean, it's honest, Bill Jones, they've been brutal without Lamar. I was at their last game against the Rams. Cooper Rush was atrocious. He got benched for Snoop Huntley. Unfortunately, Huntley wasn't much better. So the Ravens are in win now mode, and they ain't winning unless Lamar is playing. 6 straight losses without Lamar as their starter. So if Lamar plays, I think Baltimore wins. If he doesn't, I would take Chicago. But regardless, I think the Bears getting 6.5 is the smartest play here, if you're asking me.
The Bears, let's say Pittsburgh wins at home over Green Bay and Green Bay falls to 4-2-1. With a win, the Bears would be tied with the Lions for first place in the NFC North at 5-2. How about that?
Pretty impressive considering they started 0-2.
Wow.
Oh, wow. How about that? All right.
That's good stuff. You don't get that just anywhere.
That's true. Well, we dig deep here on Jonesing for football. Let's get to pressures on, Mr. Jones. One of your favorite segments. Take it away.
Pressure's on. You know, I was going to go with Tua,
Yeah, I mean,
but that was just too easy. Okay. And Miami's playing at Atlanta. And by the way, the Falcons, who lost to San Francisco 20-10 last week, they still have the number 1 pass defense in the league. And in terms of yardage allowed,
mhm.
but forget about Miami. Everyone should forget about Miami.
Yeah,
Although, how
exactly.
about Quinn Ewers got into the game last week? Who had how many of the third day quarterbacks have played? And Quinn Ewers among the first to get into a game. How about that?
We said it was a good situation for him with to his injury situation on and off, and the Dolphins being
But
lacking talent and needing some sort of potential quarterback. Good
didn't
spot
take
for him.
long for him to move ahead of Zach Wilson on the depth chart there at quarterback. Okay.
Very true.
All right. So, but my pressure's on. I'm looking at that Buffalo Carolina game. Buffalo, another inter-conference game at Carolina. Buffalo 4-2. They've lost 2 straight games,
Yep.
taking on a Carolina team that's won 3 in a row, 4 of their last 5 games, but now playing without Bryce Young. So the Red Rifle gets another opportunity. Andy Dalton All right, we already discussed Carson Wentz is a redhead, right?
Yes, very,
Okay. Cooper Rush is a redhead, right?
very much so.
How are they doing?
Not good.
Andy Dalton, the next redhead to come into a game. Andy Dalton. I look back 20 years ago. This is how far back I go with Andy Dalton. He's now 37. In fact, he turns 38 next Wednesday. In 2005, I was at the Class 5A state championship game at Texas Stadium, and this red rifle from Katy, Texas, led the Katy Tigers against Greg McElroy and the South Lake Carroll Dragons in the state championship game, won by the Dragons, Greg McElroy. How's his career turned out?
Greg is a very good analyst for
Yes, he
ESPN.
is. He actually quarterbacked Alabama to a national championship too.
Yep,
Okay, but and then a brief stint with the Jets, and he's got a long career, already established career in broadcasting. He's doing great.
yep.
Andy Dalton, on the other hand, great guy. Lives here in Dallas and going to live here forever. A TCU legend. All right, if you go back and look at his career, the pressure is on Andy Dalton right now. Okay. Bryce Young has set the table for him. Okay. They've won three in a row. They're at 4-3. The reason Andy Dalton is on this team, he's the veteran guy. What happened last year when Bryce Young, 2 games into the season, things were not going well? Dave Canales, the coach, and they benched Bryce Young. Andy Dalton came in. First game, he lit it up. 3 touchdown passes. They beat the Raiders 30. They got up 33-7 on the Raiders with Andy Dalton at quarterback. And okay, this season's going to be okay for the Carolina Panthers. Well, he started the next 4 games and lost all 4 of them. The Panthers
Yeah, right.
winds up 1-4. But you go back and look at Andy Dalton's career, and this is why, even not just from a team perspective with Carolina, but even for Andy Dalton's career path here, the pressure is on him to show that he can still do it, and that you go back and look at when he was with the Bengals the first 5 years, his record as a starting quarterback for the Bengals was very good. 50 wins, 28 losses, and a tie. It wasn't good in the playoffs. 0-4 in the playoffs.
Yep.
Since then, since 2015, the last 10 years, things have not gone well for the Red Rifle at quarterback, no matter what team he's been quarterbacking, whether it was the Bengals, the Cowboys, the Saints, or the Panthers. This is a chance for the Red Rifle to revive the perspective on his career as he approaches age 38. The 3-time Pro Bowler, Andy Dalton, pressures on you to show us what you still got.
You forgot the Bears too. He started for some games for the
Oh,
Bears in 21. How about this? I mean, I'm looking and you're 100% right. Started games for 5 different teams in 5 years. I'm telling you, that probably hasn't happened for any other person in NFL history. Bengals in 2019, Cowboys in 2020, Bears in 21, Saints in 22, Panthers in 23. Wow. Not only that, but to your point on I think this is actually fair to use this term, suddenly surging Panthers, a win against the Bills, and they could easily make the playoffs here. They still have the Saints twice, the Falcons, the 49ers, Rams, Bucks. Like, they could make the playoffs. And this is the type of game that this is the reason the Panthers signed Andy Dalton. If Bryce is out for a week or two, put Andy Dalton in, win a game, win 2 games. This is why he was actually brought to Carolina. I'm with you, Bill Jones.
and Andy Dalton, here are the numbers in his career. First 5 years, as I mentioned, 50, 28-1, his record as a starting quarterback. Since then, 34 wins, 54 losses, and a tie. But this is Andy Dalton is Carolina's Cooper Rush.
Yeah.
Okay. And Cooper Rush, that was why Baltimore spent money in the offseason to bring Cooper Rush. It's why the Cowboys moved on from Cooper Rush. They had seen enough. Yeah, back in the 2021 season or whatever year it was, he went 4-1. But once he played against a really good team in Philadelphia, things did not go well. And so here we go. Andy Dalton against a really good team that really needs to win, Buffalo, at 4-2 and having lost two straight games, coming off a bye week at that.
Buffalo now feeling the heat from New England, even in their own division, right? Everyone's like, the Bills are always going to win the division, blah, 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 blah. Well, guess what? Someone else is feeling some pressure. Speaking of the Patriots, it's the quarterback Drake May taking on the Browns. The Patriots' 23-year-old quarterback has been a complete monster this year. 14 total touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and leads the NFL in passer rating 116 and completion percentage as well. 75.2 completion percentage for Drake May. And fantasy-wise, he could be as high as quarterback 3 in your league, which he is in one of my leagues. And I love it because I picked him in most of my fantasy teams. But let's be real, Bill Jones, the schedule hasn't been that tough. According to ESPN Analytics, which, as I mentioned, I fully support all ESPN products, including ESPN Analytics, New England has had the easiest schedule in the league with an opponent's record of 17-30. And while their schedule has been kind of a joke, they face a Browns defense this week. That's no joke at all. Number 1 in fewest yards allowed, just like they were a couple years ago. Myles Garrett's still a monster. He's on pace for another 13, 14, 15 sack season. And let's shout out Malik Collins, currently the highest graded interior defensive lineman, according to our friends over there at Pro Football Focus. A strong performance against those guys and this defense will tell me whether Drake May has fully arrived. So, pressure's on Drake May. And now to you, Bill Jones. You've been a skeptic of May since he was drafted number 3 overall in 2024, including that shot you took at him in week 2 podcast after he struggled in the opener. You took a shot at him, Bill Jones. But I do want to give you some credit because you did admit a couple weeks ago that Drake May is playing better. So I ask you now, we need an update. Have you fully flipped on Drake May as the Patriots quarterback of the future?
I haven't fully flipped. Who's he played against again?
The easiest schedule in the league.
Okay, good. I need more evidence. I will give him credit that he's been functional. Okay,
Yep,
right. And
for sure.
but let's see against better competition. See exactly what happens with him. They beat Buffalo, right?
In Buffalo.
In Buffalo, they went, and that's where he caught my eye. Okay, now I'm starting to see it. My biggest thing with Drake May was I just looking at, I understand the tangibles, the size, the arm, everything. I needed to see him actually do it in clutch situations. I remember leading into the draft, I guess it was Drake May versus Bo Nix. Did North Carolina play Oregon in a bowl game, I think, maybe in San Diego, whatever they call that bowl game now, or what they called it then. It changes year
Yeah,
to year.
right.
And that's where I got on the Bo Nix bandwagon. And I thought, you know what? Now here we got Bo Nix playing the Cowboys, and we've got Drake May leading the New England Patriots to the top of the AFC East.
How about that? Interesting for the Patriots. And part of the reason I drafted Drake in all my fantasy leagues, I mentioned Patriots, easiest schedule in the league so far. How about this? Easiest schedule in the league going forward. So
Wow.
that's why I picked him. And that's why I picked the Patriots to make the playoffs this year. So we will see on Drake May right
I got
now.
one other thing. You mentioned Malik Collins, former Cowboy, third round draft pick,
Yep.
who's gone on to, I mean, he wasn't bad here at all. He did a good job, but he was one of those that the Cowboys didn't have the funds to sign him to a second contract, so he moved on. So he ranks up there as one of the top interior defensive linemen in the league. Is that what you're saying?
When I checked this week, he was the highest graded interior defensive lineman.
Think the Cowboys could use Malik Collins on this defense?
Yeah, I think so.
Signed a 2-year, $20 million deal with the Browns. How are the Browns doing this year?
The team or the defense?
The team.
Oh, terrible.
Okay, he's 30 years old. Got a trade deadline coming up here. What do you
Mm,
think of a trade target Malik Collins to the
mm,
Cowboys? What do you think
mm,
about that?
I like what you're doing there, Bill Jones. I feel it.
Uh, that's and this will be a subject probably for next week. Leading up, the trade deadline is a week from Tuesday, November 5th, November 4th or 5th, and so anyway, that's a prime need for the Cowboys is to get another big guy in the middle of their defense. But anyway,
There
and
you
that
go.
would be an affordable one. You wouldn't have to give up that much for, and so anyway, just a
Good
thought.
call. Like it. Let's finish strong with our fantasy favorite. This is our fourth segment. I'm holding up the four fingers. Looking back at last week, Bill Jones, you went with your old reliable, which was just whatever quarterback plays against the Cowboys defense. That was Jaden Daniels. Was having a good game until he got hurt in the third quarter. He finished with 20 fantasy points in my league, which made him quarterback 13. Of course, he would have finished higher had he not gotten hurt halfway through the game. I gave you Patrick Mahomes. And as I mentioned earlier, he destroyed the Raiders, but he actually played too well, Bill Jones, because they pulled him in the third quarter for Gardner Minshew. The Chiefs are up 31-0. I don't think I've ever seen an NFL quarterback pulled in the third quarter because it was such a blowout, but that's what happens when you play the Raiders. Mahomes still finished as QB7 last week, scoring 29 points in my league. So week 8, here we are. Mr. Jones, give us your fantasy favorite.
But this will be quick. Bo Nix.
Bo Nix. Bo Nix. By the way,
No,
go ahead.
by the way, shout out to Sean Payton and the did you see the go ahead touchdown run by Bo Nix with 2 minutes left in the game last week against the Giants? They're coming
Yes.
out of the 2 minute warning, and they set that play up so perfectly with a bunch trips to the right hand side, and they had and in fact, Will McClay, the Cowboys vice president of player personnel, does a segment every week going behind enemy lines and just looking at some plays. And well, that was one of the plays that he picked out, and he was showing how they set it up perfectly, the blocking scheme, and it was just a perfect fit for what the Giants were doing defensively. And the lone defender on that side is Kayvon Thibodeau, who obviously his strength is not defending the run. And they had it blocked up an 18-yard touchdown run. Anyway, so Bo Nix as a run threat is a real thing um, for the Broncos. Were you going to say something before I?
Yes, as a fantasy tip to go along with Bo Nix, a lot of times the over under for touchdown passes for a quarterback is 1.5. Bo Nix, one of the highest quarterbacks in the league of 2 or more touchdowns in a game. So that plus going against this Cowboys defense, which we know has struggled, although it's also important to mention, you mentioned them playing more man defense when they've been playing it almost a historical zone rate early in the season. That could switch a little bit of all these quarterbacks lighting up the Dallas defense that switch from zone to man here. All right, I want to give you mine.
No. Okay. Bo Nix is that I was kind of joking that about Bo Nix being my guy, but you can go with Bo Nix. The other guy, real quick, is Bijan Robinson. Atlanta's playing Miami, and the Dolphins have. I thought the Cowboys had the worst run defense in the league, but actually the Dolphins have. And Quinshon Judkins last week
Yeah,
had 3 touchdowns. No telling what Bijan's going to do. It could be one of those things, though, like Mahomes versus the Raiders last week, where the Falcons run the ball, get up on them, and then they sit him the last quarter and a half. But go ahead now.
I'll give you Bo Nix and Bijan Robinson. We'll recap them both next week
Okay.
during fantasy favorite. And that's good because a running back is also where I'm going. It's one who hasn't really played a great game all year, but this will be his breakout week. Saquon Barkley. Have you heard of him? He is taking on his former team, the Giants. How about this? Last year, including the playoffs, Saquon ran for 2,504 yards in 20 games. It's the most yards regular season and playoffs combined in NFL history. He was held to 60 or fewer yards twice in 20 games. This year, completely different story, Mr. Jones. Through 7 games, it's already happened 6 times. 6 times. So only once this season, Saquon's gone over 60 rushing yards. Unbelievable. My suggestion on last week's pod, if you remember, throw it to open up the run game. Well, that's exactly what the Eagles did last week versus Minnesota. Hurts threw for a season high 326 and a perfect passer rating. So now part 2 of the plan comes together at the most ideal time. Saquon goes big versus former team. Barkley over 100 rushing yards against the Giants. And I'll be there covering it for ESPN with the great Sal Paolantonio. Let's go, Bill Jones.
All right, very good. So we will see your work first Sunday morning, or how does that work with your gig at ESPN?
That's right. All morning on Sunday, included starting at 8:45. First hit Sal Paolantonio on the field at the link. We've got some good stuff planned, some sound bites, some full screen, some graphics. You're going to learn a lot about the Eagles and the Giants. Tune into ESPN on
That's
Sunday morning.
7:45 Dallas time. Is that what that is?
It is, yes, sir.
Okay, all right. And we've got Cowboys game day on CBS Texas at 10:30 on Sunday morning. And again, it's the Cowboys and the Broncos on CBS with Nance and Romo on the call, a rarity. I think there's just 2 games. It's this game and the Thanksgiving game, maybe, that Nance and Romo are doing, Cowboys. So they can use all their ammunition this week and Thanksgiving, and so it should be fun. Hope you're looking at something there.
Romo calling the Cowboys game this week. Troy Aikman calling the Cowboys game next week.
Ah, that's right.
There you
That's
go.
right. Very good. All right, and Babe Loffenberg calls the Cowboys game every week, right?
I don't even listen to Romo or Aikman. I just listen to Babe and Brad Sham on the Cowboys radio broadcast. That is the best way to listen to the Cowboys.
And the best way to get you ready for an NFL week is jonesing for football each and every week. Young Cody, have a great time covering your game. And how about we do this again next week, once more time here on Jonesing
For football. Love you, babe.